Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's masterclass workshop. Uh, Masterclass workshop hosted by Skilling Future. Each Saturday, we have one of our amazing team members host workshops on different topics related to AI within their specialty area. So far, we've had amazing workshops on AI ethics, PBL. We've had one by Joanne. She's also in the session at the moment related to the DICE framework that she had developed. And we had already conducted one workshop. This is the second workshop. I'm so excited to to actually facilitate this one. And do follow us on our LinkedIn page so you're updated with respect to whatever is ongoing. We do a weekly series where we have small bite-sized videos in which you would have seen Andy beforehand as well. We do tech tide videos on Tuesday. We have thought leadership articles on Thursday. And on Saturdays, this is our regular feature. And as we move forth, we will be introducing new things and some new ideas, some new components as well. So I think so if there's something that you feel that either you or your fellow members may value from, kindly share our social media links with them. Let me introduce Andy to you. Today, I definitely have the privilege to learn from a true innovator and an educational transformer. I'm delighted to introduce Andy Luchessi. She's a co-founder at Skill Future and programs and innovation lead, where she's revolutionizing how we approach professional development and educational technology. Andy brings a unique blend of strategic vision and hands-on experience to the education space. As a driving force behind Skilling Future's AI-powered education solutions, she's helping educators worldwide embrace the future of learning while staying grounded in effective pedagogical practices. In today's session, Andy will share insights on prompt engineering, how to talk to LLMs, drawing from her extensive experience in designing transformative professional development programs, and also with respect to how basically AI works and how is it that we can work with it effectively. Please join me in welcoming Andy Luchessi.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited this is my second time to give a workshop here for Skilling Future. And remember that if you want to watch this recording later for better note taking or because you want to share it with a friend, remember that you can always find the recording on YouTube. Okay, let's do this thing. Today we're going to focus on a topic that it's really buzzing, and everybody is usually very, very concerned about it, or some people sometimes even consider it because I have found from all types of groups some things that it's incredibly important, others don't think that it's so important. Some people believe that maybe the title prompt engineering is a lot of marketing. There are a lot of opinions about what this is. So let's understand it a little bit deeper so we can uh, understand also the urgency of understanding how to work with this skill. So this on this workshop, the objective that we're going to cover is to understand large language models, especially the latest models. We're going to work specifically with ChatGPT and Gemini. If we've got the time with the latter, we're going to debunk, as usual, some misconceptions. That is one of my favorite parts, like try to brush off the knowledge that we have there and try to update it as much as we can. Try to master some, not basic, but yes, super necessary frameworks that we need when prompting, and then examining ethical concerns, including bias, privacy, and resource sustainability specifically, and of course, some hands-on activities. So Thanks to Santa, I don't have to introduce myself. That is a load taken off my shoulders because I don't know why talking about ourselves is always sort of like the thing that we don't like to do. But there you have it. The only thing that I might add is that I'm a certified ESL educator, that I've been around for over 16 years. I have to correct this thing. And right now, I am integrating artificial intelligence into teaching language skills, critical thinking, and real world applications, not only for students, but also for educators. Okay, let's start. I would like to start by telling you of the book that I'm reading. The book that I'm reading is it's co-authored by Reid Hoffman and Greg Beato. Greg Hoffman probably rings a bell because he is one of the co-founders of LinkedIn. And Greg Beato is a famous journalist and writer based right now in San Francisco. And this book is about or discusses one of the potential impacts of artificial intelligence on society and the importance of thoughtful progression in artificial AI development. What caught my eye is just by reading the introduction. This is part of the intro, and I will read it as it is to quote. As at this point, we know from thousands of years of experience that if a technology can be created, if a technology can be created, humans will create it. As I've written elsewhere, including in my previous book, Impromptu, we are Homo techni, at least as much as we are Homo sapiens. We continuously create new tools to amplify our capabilities and shape the world to our liking. In turn, these tools end up shaping us as well. What this suggests is that humanism and technology, so often presented as oppositional forces, are in fact integrative ones. Every new technology we've invented, from language to books to the mobile phone, has defined, redefined, deepened, and expanded what it means to be human. And I would like to start with these words because what actually struck me strongest is we are Homo techni, as Reid Hoffman puts it in his book, and that we can continuously create new tools to amplify our capabilities. And nothing could be said more nothing can be more precise when it comes to talk about prompt engineering, because this is one of the many skills that we have to learn when it comes to artificial intelligence. So, what is it, prompt engineering? What is it exactly? What we understand by prompt engineering is this, let's say, capacity or ability that we can develop by crafting precise messages or inputs to the AI and or to the generative AI, and it will provide an output. Basically, that's it. A prompt and that it's well crafted is going to give us a good output. That is what the whole concern of prompt engineering is all about. But why is it so relevant? It is relevant because when we're talking about large language models, we need to understand that they are powerful predicting engines. Powerful predicting engines because they don't do anything else rather than predict the next word that comes into the realm of that of the word that has been said before. For example, if I say castle, it's probably going to link it to prince or queen or king or realm, right? So that is what it's going to do. It's going to try to do its best to predict the word that comes after. So you might be thinking, well, so how is it that every time that I talk to it, I obtain really good answers or answers that are quite satisfying? Well, because large language models are big pleasers. They are designed in many ways to their whole pursuit is to provide us an answer in its best of its capacity. But in order for it to give us the best of its capacity, it is critical for us to provide a good prompt. Otherwise, having a high quality output with good context, specific responses are going to be quite difficult. So the challenges that we present when we are referring to prompt engineering is obtaining, especially when we're crafting the prompt, is balancing specificity. What does it mean? Do we know actually really to communicate in human? Let's forget about the machines for a second. One of the biggest challenges that we present as human beings is to communicate in our own language because sometimes we struggle organizing our thoughts. Then about context. How much do we know about that subject in order for us to develop maybe an outline of the output that sorry of the content that we want the large language model to give us? And then do we have enough ethical considerations in order to craft a good message for the large language model? And then finally, have we developed our human criteria enough? These are all the challenges that we affront when we are, well, doing some prompt engineering. So here are some insights. When we're talking to large language models, they take things quite literal. Even the new models that they are trained in reasoning, but not in the cognitive way as we humans do, they take things quite literally. So just by changing some words, it can give us a very different result from what we have envisioned originally in our heads. And let's be very clear, the human input that goes into every conversation is central, it's primordial. If we don't know secondarily how to edit the message or the answer that the large language model give us, it's also like just going in circles. Then in this, the second point, it's about maximizing multimodal and multi-step capabilities. Probably you have been using ChatGPT or maybe other large language models to not only create or produce text, answers with text, but also images or audio, or maybe to transform image to text and or maybe, for example, links to an answer. So we need to understand that these models are becoming in a very fast-paced, updated by by their makers and also by us, the users. So we have to keep updated. And because we have to keep updated, we have to keep on practicing our communicative skills with the large language models. About efficiency and ethical considerations. When we're talking about ethical considerations, here is we have to deeply evaluate the ways that we require something, or the ways that we ask the large language model to do a task for us. Basically, because usually it doesn't give us the answer or it doesn't work out as much as we want it in cases that the large language model provides you an output that it's not the one that you expected. It's because some of the wording that you use were not exactly correct or goes even against how the model was built. And then, of course, adaptive and context-rich instruction. In this particular case, the large language models requires organized prompts. What does it mean, organized prompts? It's not simply about spitting out any sort of requirements or just one-liner prompt. There are structures that can actually take you to exactly the answer or the output that you want. So There are some three common misconceptions or myths in order to understand better prompting. So let's debunk them. Myth number one, AI understands intent with vague prompts. If I read, help me teach history, probably you will, as when we talk to humans, we will be with a giant question mark on our heads, like, what is it exactly about history you want me to cover? What is exactly the point where you want me to focus on? So when we're talking about redefined prompts, we're talking about something like this. And I'm going to read exactly as it is. Design a role play activity for 8th graders to debate the causes of the American Revolution. I just chose this one because I was talking about it yesterday with my students, assigning roles such as loyalists and patriots and include clear instructions for both groups. This is a very clear prompt that actually takes us to from a place of vague answer to a well-crafted answer where we have a role, where we have a specific audience, and where we are also specifically giving the large language model where from all the large history that surrounds us, where is it that I wanted to focus? So why does it work? It works because it is a clear prompt that reduces ambiguity and it aligns with, for example, the curriculum that I'm teaching or specific focus that I want my students to develop later on in the classroom. Longer prompts, better answers. I don't know about you guys, but I have seen prompts that are huge. And I am not saying that they were not good. I am saying that they were excessively wordy. And just because they were excessively wordy, it confused in many ways the large language model and actually produced an answer that it was in the end useless or redundant or with lack of value or not the value that we were expecting, the quality that we were expecting. So this is an example. This is the example of what a long prompt looks like. Can you please explain the process of photosynthesis in a way that a 10-year-old who is new to biology could understand, etc., etc. So it is quite long. As you can see, it's not necessary to say, can you please? I know that as humans, we would consider it when we talk to another human quite rude if we don't ask in that way, but it's not necessary. It's not going to better the output if you ask, please. If you just do it because you feel better doing it, so fine. But it's not going to provide a better answer. Quite the opposite. Um, an optimized prompt would look like this. Explain photosynthesis. Why do I say explain photosynthesis? I started with the main idea first. What is it that I want? I want the large language model to explain. That's why action verbs are so incredibly important when we're talking to large language models. Explain, provide, design, this sort of words are the ones that large language models expect, like a plant expects water in order to be alive, because it's what is going to provide us a quality answer. So look at this. Explain photosynthesis in 3 clear steps for a 10-year-old using the analogy of a solar-powered factory to illustrate how plants absorb sunlight, convert it to energy, and produce sugar. It's beautiful and it's really good because it has a clear audience, it has a clear main idea, and it is going to give me, and I have provided the focus. The third myth that, and why does it work? It works because it's concise, it's clear, and it's contextually relevant. The takeaway here is that when we clear our prompts from unnecessary details that might confuse the large language model is when we're actually going to see the so-called magic that we hear so often people talk on the internet happen, okay? Now, the third myth. AI provides neutral generic answers. I left this one uh, last, basically because I would like to start asking you, what does a generic answer look to you? Or if you think about it deeper, what does it neutral also means to you? Because it's definitely a matter of perspective. If I am a person that I am talking to the large language model that has been trained with massive, massive data from all the open internet, and we understand that it has been trained with the information that it's just out there with its own biases by other humans, and it's just simply recollecting and forming an answer for me. Well, you might understand that the output that we are looking for, it's probably not the best quality in terms of quality, the one that we expect. Example, if I say describe a nurse, that is not a prompt. What is that? It's basically just very confusing for the large language model. And I understand that for some of us, that's how we communicate with the large language models. And that's why it has been quite frustrating for some. Probably most of the people that are in this talk have already surpassed this point. But this is just a very simplistic example of what what bad communication looks like in with the large language models. So, for example, the output would be a nurse is a caring, gentle woman who takes care of patients. I have already practiced. These are real prompts that I have introduced, and these are real answers that I have introduced to the large language model. And this was the answer. Whereas when I, for example, wrote describe a nurse in a gender neutral manner, emphasizing technical skills, empathy, and problem solving in a busy hospital environment, it was definitely a different output. I also then continued by asking it, can you give me an image? Can you give me some role examples of this nurse in the hospital, et cetera, et cetera, so I could continue the conversation just as an experiment. But do you see the difference between A and B? Let's give it another look here. Describing a scientist. Poor prompt. Describe a scientist. Just nothing. I'm just confusing the large language model. The output was a scientist is usually a man in a lab coat doing experiments. Again, perpetrating biases through time, right? The same thing happened with the nurse. Now, if I write, describe a scientist from a diverse background working in a renewable energy focusing on innovative research methods and community collaboration, that is a definitely much more higher quality prompt, especially because it's going to probably work on different ethnicities, nationalities, and so on. By the way, I don't know why, but it was impossible for the large language model when I asked for images not to give us a scientist without the glasses. I don't know why it always gave it us with the glasses. That is something that has to be fine-tuned anyways. Um, then why does it work? For prompt number one, in this particular case, what was the focus is what it should be important for us when we do this sort of prompting. Remember that I am not talking just about you educators. I'm talking about us as educators who already have a basic knowledge on prompting. How is it that we're going to teach it to our students? We talk about about enhancing our capabilities all the time, but we sometimes forget our students' capability also inside and outside the classroom for the same basic skills. So, if it was our opportunity to teach our students, for example, this sort of prompting, because this is something that maybe a student might do, right? Certainly not a trained professional that, even if it's a junior or a senior, probably it would give a little bit more of meat, right, to the large language model. So when I was crafting this conversations with the large language models, I was thinking about our students. So, um, So then here it focused on the objective, on the it also focused on the correct description of the usage of words that was needed. And the same I did for the second prompt. What I would like you to take from myth 3, in the way that we have debunked it, is that by using explicit qualifiers, basically using the right words, we can improve enormously how the large language model give us the answers. So in this case, I would like to then jump to basic prompt structures. I know that on the internet or different courses that perhaps you have gone to, the thing is that they like to give it a lot of names, right? They like to give prompts a lot of different names. I wanted to be very simple. I wanted to be very pragmatic about the names, so I just wanted to call them role instruction context. Okay, let's call it like that: role instruction context framework. Why does it work? It works because it has a powerful use in most contexts, especially when we are talking about adopting a role, a persona, right? A specific persona, because then the large language model will understand what is the role that you want it to perform. Let's not confuse it like being someone specific. Why not? Because when we ask it to be a specific person, we might be breaking some ethical rules and it might not give us the answers. It might say, I cannot give you this answer directly. So it is better if we say something as simple as act as a veteran fifth grade math teacher, for example. Okay. But if we ask it to be someone specific, like J.K. Rowling, or maybe someone like a famous person from history, it might not give us like the answer as we thought it would. Then the specificity in these prompts, usually when we give it an instruction and context, basically when we provide examples and exactly what is it that we want, how we want it to draw the outline, it's going to be a lot easier for us to obtain the answer. For example, look at this one. Explain the concept. After I have given it a role, I asked it to explain the concept of fractions using the analogy of slicing a pizza, for example. Include a simple activity that students can do in groups. Now, this last part, it could have been even better. I could have asked, like, I could have given it more information, like in groups of 3, in groups of 4, because the dynamics actually changes, right? What if I am talking about admin tasks? Okay. Act as a school principal, draft a brief memo outlining strategies to improve student engagement in after-school programs focusing on creative learning activities. In this particular case, I am not only giving a persona, but I'm giving a little bit of context. Here, I can even improve it because after I've said draft a brief memo outlining strategies to improve student engagement after school programs, I could have also asked it to create maybe a secondary document for the parents, right? That all could be included here in that same prompt. The second framework that I would like to show you is question, specification, format. In this case, it works because it looks like this. By breaking into questions as in normal conversations, sort of like what we could obtain right now by model O1 or by model O3 mini or O3 mini high, for example, which are reasoning models. We can also do it without necessarily using those models. Okay, we can simply use it with ChatGPT 4.0, right? Okay, I'm gonna stop for a second. I'm gonna read some of your questions here. Okay. Yes, Perplexity is great for research. Claude is good, but if it's free limit, yes. Okay, I am stopping because I am seeing um so many of you participating in the chat that I think that it should be addressed. Okay, so yes, I think that is all of your considerations are incredibly valuable. I am specifically referring to ChatGPT right now because I do understand that globally, it's usually the large language model where that people uses more often or have heard more about. So that's why I am specifically talking about it. But yes, you're right. But now that perplexity has been mentioned, also understand that when we're talking to large language models, not all of them respond similarly. I always like to use the example of thinking of large language models, like when I talk about different personalities and different people. Why is this? Because even though in essence they are built similarly, I feel that when I, for example, talk to Perplexity, the way that I prompt or that I introduce a prompt in Perplexity is very, very different that when I prompt Claude or ChatGPT. And probably you have felt it too. Um, Basically, because when I use ChatGPT on voice mode or by chat, the interaction is always much more, let's say, closer to human. Now, when I'm talking here about this framework, about question specification format, it's also about the desired format that I want. Um, I am always thinking in how what these models can do for us in a way that they can make our lives easier. Always that is my main concern. What is it that I can do with this tool in order for it to make my life easier? So I always try to introduce the format that I desire it to give me the answers. For example, here, imagine that we are a high school or high education teacher or professor. So I write something like this. What are the major themes in Shakespeare's Hamlet? Yes. Include social, political, and psychological perspective and organize your answer in a comparative table. After I have obtained that, how is it that I can expand it? Well, my input as a human is to actually have an interaction and converse with the large language model for me to either craft my activity or, if I am a student, to continue studying. I can literally ask the large language model, I don't want you to provide all the answers. I want you to help me study for my term exam. Okay? Then, what if we want to create a prompt for an admin task? Imagine that we are creating a curriculum planning. Same thing. What are the key components of an effective science curriculum for high school? List them along with brief explanations and format your response as a checklist, right? Maybe you, after doing this or before doing that, doing this introducing this prompt, you can share a document, a previous document that you have created in order for it to have a better reference. That is also something that you can do. Also, the last one is about task, and I have called it limit optimization output. What does it mean? In this particular case, when I'm talking about limit optimization, is because apart from providing a task, I want to explain exactly the large language model. What is it that I don't want it to do? Or the things that I wanted to take specifically into consideration so I can optimize so I can optimize its answers and of course save time. For example, summarize a recent research article on renewable energy. I can also provide the link if that is the case. And then what is the constraint? 300 words written at an undergraduate level, present the summary as bullet points. That is something very simple, but is very effective. Prompt for admin task student assignments. In this case, I decided to go for develop a 30-minute lesson plan on the water cycle for 7th grade science students. What are the constraints? Include at least one hands-on activity and an assessment component. Output the plan in a clear step-by-step format. Definitely, what is it that I would like you to understand from this? In my particular case, one of the things that I would always recommend is then for you to finally edit it in a way that that it works best for your class. I like to work with different artificial intelligence. Like once it has given me a document, I like, for example, like to go to Canva and transform it into a presentation that it can automatically do for me, or the same Gamma, right? I create the document and it creates the presentation for me. So because I see that there is some of us that are in the audience that can participate actively, let's practice a little bit. So here is a case study. What would be a prompt that you would create based on what we have just reviewed a second ago for designing a STEM or a history lesson for K-12? So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes and it would be lovely to read your answers in the chat. Okay. Shahida,
Uh,
can you go ahead and read the answer? Or Sana, can you read the answers? Because I for some reason, I cannot read them.
okay. Just wanted to ask one question. You've talked about that, okay, don't give very long prompts to any LLM. So
What,
is there a specific
let
uh,
me, sorry,
very long prompts when you're talking about
so
ATL? Yeah.
let me leave yeah, let me stop sharing because for some reason there was like very low internet connection. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, because for a second you were breaking up a little. Sorry, yes, you were saying.
I was basically asking about would you suggest a specific word limit because we have seen very long prompts as well.
Um, you know, the problem about having very long prompts is not necessarily counting your words. I wouldn't focus on that. What I would focus is on your purpose. You have to
Hmm.
have a very clear purpose. And before getting into the large language model, because you can go into a large language model to have a conversation, so you can have an interaction and brainstorm, which is different. It's totally a different conversation versus when you have already a clear prompt that you have already crafted because you have already a vision of an output that you want from the large language model that it's going to help you with, right? So I wouldn't focus on counting words really. I would focus more on clarity and specificity, as I mentioned before, because for instance, if I go back to, for instance, here, limit optimization, for me as a teacher, it's really important that it has only 300 words written, right? Because maybe that is how I have seen the activity. Or it's very important that the output plan is step by step. Why? Because that's, for example, the textbook that I am using might require that sort of activity. Let's also understand that when we're talking about our interactions now, educators or students, we rely a lot on the current books that we have in schools, right? We are in a hybrid situations because it's an integration that we're doing right now. So it's not always ideal, but we have to be very creative in the ways that we do it. So to answer your question, I wouldn't focus that much on the amount of words. I would focus more on my purpose and try to divide, for example, task limit optimization in a very clear way. Or if I am talking about this one, role, instruction, and context, to be very specific about the role, like I mentioned it here, that I clearly state a persona, a person, I gave a role. Here, for example, I gave a little bit of like the instruction. How is it that I wanted it to be? And of course, it can be many different steps, as long as they are relevant to what I want, main ideas, at least at first. And then if after it has given you certain answers, you can just fine tune it, right? And then, of course, introduce a simple activity if that is the case. So yeah, did I answer your question, Santa?
Yes, yes, you did.
Cool. All right, everybody. So, as I was saying, I don't know if you guys have the little time to craft just like a couple of lines here. What prompt you would use in order to design a STEM or history lesson? It doesn't have to be too complicated. Maybe let's do it with model number one, which was role, instruction, and context. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes for you to do so, and I can read you on the chat. Oh, okay. Moise, while you're doing that, I'm gonna go through the chat because Moise, and I hope that I am pronouncing your name right, says something that is actually really important. Some use large language models just because of out of curiosity, and because it's famous nowadays. And that is so true, but very polluting. Just for you to know, it's not the best way. That's why I always talk about purpose and or purposeful use of large language models, because if you're just going to use it to play games, well, I understand the hype, but the next time that we use it, we should use it with a much more specific purpose. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Jonas said, teachers without any prompting knowledge have created great prompts because they explain what they wanted very clear. Yes, it's about not only explaining, but it's also about dividing your ideas clearly. So, all right. In case that you guys, well, some of you have already written some. I don't know if you're doing it in your notebooks or something like that, but here is how it should look like. For example, imagine that you are crafting something for your robotics class. In some schools, they do take very seriously their STEM programs. So, for instance, it can be something like this: act as a seasoned robotics engineer and high school teacher. Please notice that I am using the word seasoned, and I'm also
Hmm.
using specifically the words high school teacher, right? And I am more importantly starting with act, a specific verb. Just by providing this first line, the large language model that I'll be using, it's going to give me like 50% is done, basically. Then by providing the context, create a detailed, well, the explanation, create a detailed lesson for a ninth grade students introducing the fundamentals of robotics. I am just giving it what is it that I want. And then the rest, it's just to avoid for me having like longer conversations with it because it's already in that prompt. Yes? Okay. So here is a little bit of a teaser for next week, because next week, specifically on Thursday, to add to our articles collection by Skilling Future, we're going to be talking about why words matter to talk to large language models. So I am always concerned about our capacity, but our communication capacity, right? And the thing is that communication is a skill that we never stop developing through the years. And nowadays, not only learning how to prompt, but learning to ask the right questions is more urgent than ever. So that's why I bring you the following mini chart for you to consider every time that you will be communicating with large language models. The power of a well-formulated question. Basically, this question, it's the prompt, the task that we are asking the large language model to perform for us or with us, which is also very important. Cultivating critical thinking. This goes for us, the educators, and of course, our students, if that is something that we will be teaching in class. And finally, beyond artificial intelligence, it's something that we have to enhance this communicational skill every day because they are going to continue developing and they are becoming better and better. And it is true that now they don't think in the cognitive way as we humans do. We're getting closer in the future that might change. We don't know if that's going to happen. So in any ways, we have to forget about large language models for a second, just to talk about us humans. We need to understand how to work our communicational skills in order to communicate better among us. And then just by fine-tuning that, we probably are going to communicate better with large language models. So here are some takeaways. Precision matters because the better structured the prompt it is, the better output you will get. Asking better questions is a skill, and it goes by you always trying to understand what is the core, the why of the reasons that you have in order to communicate with the large language model. There are no AIs that are neutral. The context that you provide actually does shapes the responses. And of course, we have to learn to edit the prompts as much as we have to learn how to prompt correctly. And that's it for now, because I would like to open the Q&A session, if it's okay with you, Sana. Okay, so let's see. Okay, let's start. Marwa says, would love to know your perspective regarding DeepSeek. Well, this is actually a really interesting one, and I was sort of like expecting it because we have talked about ChatGPT most of the time. And the thing about DeepSeek is that it's very new. It's an open source, and basically, it's just what does it mean? It means that the software, it's something, anything that it's open source is that the software, it's something that can be seen by everyone, and of course, it can be bettered by everyone. But I think that the problem about DeepSeek, and that's why everybody is so concerned about this large language model, it's because geopolitically speaking, it comes from a country that there is a lot of just negative views about it. So I'm not being naive with this answer. I'm just being very tactful about it because why should we take from one country that is good and then from other countries that is bad, right? What we inherently should be paying attention to when we're seeing large language models or any AI is our own behavior. We have to start with us, and that's why I always, for example, in our previous talk when I was talking about AI literacy, I started focusing on us as users because people who create artificial intelligence or to create technology, they are far beyond at least for our current understanding because they live in their own AI bubble or their own tech bubble, etc. Right? And right now we're just, at least I'm speaking specifically for myself that I don't come from a tech background. I am catching up. And the thing about DeepSeek is that it works, at least everything that we have talked about today. Structurally, it works the same with DeepSeek, but it's in many cases up to you if you use it or not. I hope that I answered that one. Sana, I don't know if there are like many other questions that you have been, like that you saw around that was interesting.
Okay, with DeepSeek, one of the things, okay, and this is my experience, that okay, it would work really very well. You give one prompt and then it responds, and then with the other one, the servers are extremely busy. And I think so with people with us who are really very who have other work ongoing, that's an extremely frustrating component. And this is something that we just talked about related to Claude free limit as well. Even with the paid version, I have seen that the discussion, the conversational limit at times gets frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay. Amandeep says that at times it happens that I've given a slightly detailed prompt to ChatGPT. However, it misses a few instructions. So I have to remind it to specifically do the task. Is it deliberately coded in it?
Well, the thing is that why don't what let's think about it in a much more simplistic way. Imagine that you're talking to a person and you give this person a very long instruction, okay? Very probably this person is going to remember from 10 instructions that you gave it. You gave This person is going to remember six, right? So yes, it is your responsibility while communicating with the large language model to remind some specific focus that you wanted to remember, especially if the conversation has been going on for a while. It is your responsibility to start also editing at the same time while you're having the conversations. For instance, for this presentation, of course, that I used some large language models in order for me to help outline the presentation. But of course, I have to say that it was 90% me and 10% the large language model. Why? Because what you're saying is that it's not only that it's not going to remember what you have asked, is probably because remember what I said at the very beginning, that large language models are people pleasers. They're probably going to give you an answer, because there is a difference between having a wrong answer versus having a hallucination. A hallucination is just definitely gibberish, okay, from the large language model. And a wrong answer, it's because contextually we know that whatever the large language model answered was wrong. Now, it sounds very similar, but it's not really, because a hallucination is basically it made it all up, versus maybe the wrong answer. It's because there was some wording that could have been changed, and then it could, understand it a little better. So there's a huge difference. So yeah. Dairy Marie, it also depends on the model you're using. Yes, we talked about it. Yes, we talked about it a couple of minutes ago, but this is a good point to go back again. I would like to show you. Um, I would like to show you with ChatGPT, if just very, very quickly, because I know that we're almost done. Um, okay, so let me see if I can share the screen, if I'm capable. Okay, so what I want to show you with this is that how in different models it looks the answer. I even analyzed the reasoning of ChatGPT. I have the paid model, the paid version, sorry, of ChatGPT. And if it's possible for you to do so, this is the one investment that I would ask you, to sort of like wisely use your money, because it's really gonna help you out a lot. So, in any case, The good thing about O3 Mini, which is the latest model, in O3 Mini High, is that O3 Mini, it's something that if you're not a user who is paying the pro version, you can have it. But let's, for example, use this one. This one is using the reasoning model, meaning that similarly to O1 Preview, it analyzed its answer before it gave you an answer. So let's say something like this. Who came first? The egg or the chicken? Okay, so I know that in this particular case, this is just a simple question. It's not like the framework that I was mentioning before. And this was actually very quick, but I would like you to show you this. Do you see? The reasoning models that we have right now that somebody in the audience mentioned DeepSeek, which has the deep research model, which is thinking. And the same happens with the reasoning models that we have here in ChatGPT, which is the O1 Preview, 3 Mini, and 3 Mini High. And as we have, for example, in Gemini, that also has it, a reasoning model, it reasons in a way that it takes us to the answer. Do you see? And one of the things that I like is that, did I have that same reasoning? I like to read it because sometimes in the reasoning of the large language model, I can find not because sometimes I ask the questions not because I want to have like a specific answer here. It's because I want to see its reasoning and see if I went through the same reasoning as my own exercise. And that is something that you can do with your students as well, for example. So yeah. All right, let's go back. Do you guys have more questions? I don't know, Sana, have you read anything that you found interesting?
We have one by Jannat, and she says that I tend to create long and unclear prompts, often due to the lack of focus while using LLM. What strategies would you recommend so that I can incorporate this habit of structuring prompts, improving my response quality?
Yes. This is I mentioned it a couple of minutes before. Organize your thoughts. The reason why we communicate so badly as humans is because we have a tendency to just have a thought that goes faster than what we can connect with our mouth, to say it simply. Okay. So unfortunately, that when we're talking human to human, it's something that can be fixed. It's a skill that we learn. Like for example, that we just have to take a moment. We don't step on. We could also learn not to step on our words. But when we're taking the time to write and create a prompt by writing it, it's a lot easier to organize our thoughts. So I would start by my mind mapping. One of the things that I usually do if I'm going to start creating a project, or if I want to work on maybe an essay or maybe a research paper, I would usually mind map initially my thought in order to see it. Or in a much more dynamic way, why don't you start having a conversation with the large language model and tell it by just using one line main idea, what is it that you want? For example, I am starting a research project for my science class, right? Based on our previous conversations about the topic, what do you think I should do differently this time? And then you can start having this conversation. And once that you are satisfied with the interaction, you can then start asking a much more, a better craft. You can say, you can introduce the craft by saying it if you were having an oral interaction, or by typing it. So you can ask, okay, now that my ideas are clearer, outline a five-step lesson for the topic that we have been discussing until now. And it will do it for you. And then that's your interaction. You start working on it. I hope that I answered.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay. One more thing, Andy, at times, and this is something that I've seen people do as well, that okay, they get a prompt design from one LLM and then have it put into another LLM. How smart, how is it a good strategy?
Oh yeah, and I love it.
For
I,
example,
I love having
okay,
conversations. Yes, sorry, finish your
because at times, well, if somebody's not clear about that, okay, uh, what is a prompt that can give us very good results? They'll be like going to one LLM and then we'll be like, okay, I need to get this task done, but I need a good prompt for it. And then they'll get a prompt designed from that LLM. For example, going to Claude, having a prompt designed, and then going back to ChatGPT and putting it there. Because again, those limitations are present.
and it's not only
So
present.
is that a good idea?
It is always a good idea. It's like having conversations with different co-workers, right? And I, for example, see it in that way because just because the prompt is exactly the same prompt, it doesn't necessarily mean that that large language model is going to give you the same answer. And this is actually so interesting. Because it also is going to help you to fact check in many cases to see if it was hallucinating at some point. If you asked, for instance, for the large language model to provide a link, and sometimes they can even made up the links because they heard the name, around the internet. Because sometimes you can even select the search button, the one that has the minimap, and then it's going to connect to the internet. And sometimes it happens the terrifying 404 error, that it means that it doesn't exist. So by comparing conversations with multiple large language models, you definitely will create a better output. But again, a lot of people don't usually do it because we are lazy. And we just to stay in one place for it to give us just that one answer, right? So it takes work from the human to actually do that process. But of course, it's up to you and what is it that you have in mind to do.
Okay. I think so. This answered a lot of queries that some of us had in our mind, whether that's a good strategy, or is it that it can end up creating, for example, very creating again responses, which is something that we may not need.
Yes.
Okay.
Before,
Any other questions that
any other
any one
questions?
of you have, and then we can address those
Yeah, I
before
would like to
closing today's
close.
session.
If there is like no other questions, I would like to close with an interaction that I have with ChatGPT. Is that okay? Yes? All right,
Yes.
perfect. And by the way, if you are in Europe and you didn't know this part, recently it incorporated the camera thing. Hey, ChatGPT. Hey, ChatGPT, are you ready for an interaction with me?
Absolutely. I'm ready whenever you are. What would you like to do?
Listen, do you remember the prompt engineering workshop that you and I were crafting earlier this morning?
Yes, we were working on the prompt engineering workshop content. Are you ready to continue with it now?
No, I'm fine. I'm actually at the workshop. Would you like to give the attendees a final message, in order for them to create better prompts? I already gave them my 2 cents, but I would like them to listen to you.
Sure thing. Here's a message for them. Remember, creating effective prompts is all about clarity and precision. Focus on what you want to achieve and don't hesitate to experiment. Each attempt is a step towards mastering this skill. Good luck!
Thank you. That's very nice of you.
You're very welcome, Andy. If there's anything else I can do to help, just let me know. You're very welcome, Andy. If there's anything else I can do to help, just let me know.
Okay, well, she repeated herself there. But in the end, what I want you to notice here is I wanted to close with ChatGPT because of this. the way that you communicate orally with ChatGPT, it's definitely a lot different than the way that you communicate when you write to it. So bear that in mind, because if you're going to focus on something that requires a lot more of your brain power in a much more structured way, go ahead and write it. I think that is going to allow you more time to think about it. But if you're just going, to brainstorm or just have, deep conversations, sometimes also can happen, go ahead and hit that mic button because you're going to have a lot of fun. So that's it for today.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Andy, for such an insightful workshop regarding that. Okay, how is it that all of us can have an effective conversations with LLM? Because definitely all of us who are present here are making use of AI, and learning how to develop effective prompts can ensure that we get our work done in a productive manner. That it isn't taking a lot of a back and forth conversation getting the work done. So thank you so much. You talked about that. Okay, clarity needs to be there, precision needs to be there, and understanding that what is it that we require from the LLM is definitely the key. Thank you so much to all of our participants for joining for today's session. Keep an eye out for the sessions that we have in the upcoming week as well. Every Saturday, we have the workshop. Moreover, I wanted to let you know that please fill in the feedback form. It will help us ensure that you get your certificates for this workshop in a timely manner. Thank you very, very much. And if you have any questions, any comments, please let us know through our email or through our social media handles. Thank you so much again, Andy. And thank you again to all of the participants. They are raving about your workshop, stating about that, okay, how amazing this session was. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone. See you next Saturday, Marwa, and everyone else as well.